cool. All right. All right, so let's start, Chris. So I'm very glad. Actually, like last week, Frank was a speaker. So like basically, Frank was like a representative of like last year's attendees, and then you are the one who's representing like 2 years ago's attendees. So like I'm very glad that's like we can talk about your wonderful experience with this program, and to hear about developing your startup idea 2 years ago. And just to give everyone a quick intro about Chris, you graduated from Minerva last year, right?
Last year, yeah.
Yeah.
Class of 2020.
Yeah. Right. And then here in the past program, in person in Cornell, that's basically Nemoto-san works there. And then today we like to hear your experience about what works for you and what you didn't work for you, right? And then this is the last time for everyone. You can ask the question for the previous attendees for this program. So I really wanted to like make sure that's no matter like what you have like a question, just like ask like a Chris as much as possible. This is like a wonderful experience for you guys too. All right. So thanks for coming here, Chris.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, awesome. So before starting to ask question, can you introduce yourself and then what you are working on right now?
For sure. Yeah, so I think a lot of you guys are a fair bit younger than me in the Minerva system, so I haven't actually met a lot of you. So for those who don't know me, I'm Chris. I was in the class of 2020 at Minerva, so I graduated last year, and I'm from New Zealand. Yeah, so I did this program in my last summer of Minerva, and then graduated last year. And since then, I've been working as head of design at a startup. We're building a digital bank for underserved women. So I've been doing that basically from when I graduated until now, so about a year. And yeah, it's been a great experience for me. I sort of while my degree at Minerva was business psychology, I really developed a passion for design and building while I was at Minerva. And so that's kind of where I've taken my career. And I'm very happily situated as a designer and very happily in the startup world at the moment. So yeah, that's a bit of my background.
Awesome. And then how did you know the AI Incubation Lab, and then what was the motivation to apply for the program 2 years ago? And that was I assume that was like an original, like a past program, right, in Cornell?
Exactly, yeah. So I did the very first version of it. I think in a similar way for like me choosing Minerva in the second year, I like doing things in their nascent stages. I think it's like one of the most interesting times because you get to like co-build the program. I think there were two main reasons why I decided to do it. One was I spent my first summer at Minerva in Tokyo. I did the Mistletoe program. I think that's still running, so maybe you guys are familiar. But I did that program in my first summer and loved it. As a design enthusiast, living in Japan is a pretty cool opportunity, and so I wanted to come back. And the second reason was I thought the program was a good opportunity to build. I think a lot of internships are places where you learn and consume a lot, but you don't necessarily get to output a lot because you're quite junior within a large organization. But this opportunity is like, you can build and you can lead as much as you want. And I was, by the end of my time at Minerva and two more structured internships, I really wanted to create and build something rather than just consume. And so this was kind of a perfect chance to do that.
I see. I didn't know that you were in Tokyo before attending to like this program at the Mistletoe.
Yeah, right. So this is my second summer in Tokyo.
What was a pitch? What was like a pitch like about this AI incubation lab for the past year? Because I assume like Don, he said like, hey, we have this like new coming up like a program, right? What was kind of like the one liner of like this program?
Basically, I mean, there was very little information. I think also because like it was in its early stages, so SoftBank didn't want to say too much. Minerva didn't want to say too much. So it was kind of signing up blind. But I guess the one liner was like, build a startup in 10 weeks and pitch to SoftBank, and you have all of these resources from SoftBank behind you, and you live in Tokyo. That was the one liner, and I think that was enough for me.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, sounds like we are continue on that direction, like a past basically 3 years, including this year. And then just like jump into the product that you worked on, and then can you tell us what was the product idea that you worked on the 2 years ago? I assume that was called Gather, right?
Yeah, Gather. Yeah, for sure. Wait, a quick question. I'm curious what stage people are at. This is week 3 in the program. Are people still iterating on ideas? What's the stage you guys are at? Just so I get a sense of that.
Right.
First.
Yeah. I just gonna actually I'm happy to pass over to all the teams. This is week 3. Difference between the program you attended and then this year's program is that was like a 10 years program. So this year we have 11 weeks, right? And then since last year we started to have like office hours, also like a fireside chat event. That's we are inviting to the so far is like 2 previous attendees, you and Frank. And then from next week we're gonna invite founders of the startups too. And then we do have like a weekly pitch session. And then as also you guys had it before, we have a mentorship from a nearby professor, Nemotsu and me. That's kind of like, the same, but that's like a previous one is different. And then maybe like 3 of you guys can introduce yourself quickly. What's your stage looks like right now?
Yeah, so for us, we're Stan Davis. We are currently in the build stage. Spent the past couple of weeks trying to research on users. We had a tiny experiment last semester. And now we're going all deep into the code.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so I'm part of Greenbook. We're also kind of doing the same thing right now. There's a lot of research, planning, etc. happening first couple of weeks, but then sort of mentors told us, it's time to start building stuff. It's time to start, no matter how nascent it is, try to get something out there that can be used to begin with and take it from there. So we're building as well.
Awesome, cool. All right, so yeah, that's helpful for me. For us in our cohort, our team, we built a product called Gather, and the problem we were trying to solve was basically freelance creatives, freelance designers end up spending like a significant 50, 60, 70% of their time engaging in communication and in the feedback process and dealing with clients rather than actually doing the creative work that they paid to do. And we sort of identified this problem, and it came from me and a couple of other people in our team who had experience doing this kind of work. And then we backed it up with sort of a bunch of research and found out, it's actually like quite a common problem. And a lot of freelance creatives wish they were spending less time on the non-creative parts of their job. So we built a platform to basically centralize communication for freelance creatives with a few little AI tools to streamline the process further to hopefully cut down communication time and like free up their resources to create and engage in the parts that they actually are being paid to do.
That's interesting because actually the idea that's like a Frank his team they worked on is called B3. It's actually like tackling the same problem too, right? And then probably they kind of took over you guys idea, and then they worked on the last year too, right? And then your case is you a designer, also like you are a designer, and then you are still like a designer, and then you face this problem, and then you try to solve your own problem. That's you had an issue before, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think in general, like it's very cliche startup advice, but if you were solving your own problem, you're probably starting in a good position.
Awesome. And then what were the top 3 useful things that you learned from this program, and then what you like to share with this year's attendees?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually wrote down 3 things. The first one, and I think you guys I think Jack kind of mentioned it, is just like build and show your work as quickly as possible. It's like very tempting when you're sort of like a high achiever, perfectionist type to wait until something meets your standard to put it out into the world and share it with people. But this kind of process means you learn and you iterate so much more slowly. So I think we made that mistake in trying keeping things to ourselves until we had something that we felt was strong, and then we put it out into the world. But I think the sooner you can test, the sooner you can show your product to users, the people that you're trying to solve the problem for, the better. And that doesn't have to be a beautiful Figma prototype. It can be notes on a paper. It can be a description of it. It can be like, you can make it as sort of like janky and sketchy as possible. And that will give you a ton of information that you wouldn't get if you skip that step. So build and test as early as possible would be my first point. The second one, be flexible. I think a frustration we had in our team was that we would have an idea and for 3 days this is great, this is the perfect idea, the researchers all supporting it, we're really excited, and then would find one piece of research or one reason why it didn't work. Like actually the market's not there or this isn't there. But you will always run into these reasons why it won't work, no matter what, no matter how perfect the idea is. Probably every day you'll find one thing that disproves your hypothesis or that challenges your idea. And it's tempting at that point to pivot to something completely different. But if you do this, like, and you play it out forever, you just end up making a lot of small starts in multiple directions. And that's not a startup, that's a bunch of ideas. And people can have a lot of ideas, but it's hard to build a startup. So what I learned and what I would do differently is, like, when you face that challenge, that obstacle, you don't pivot away from it, you pivot into it. So you learn something and you refine your hypothesis. It doesn't mean your hypothesis is wrong. It means there's something in there that needs tweaking and changing. And if you keep listening to it as like an opportunity rather than a challenge, you'll probably find a deeper problem. You'll understand the problem in a way that most people who turn away at the first step won't ever understand it. So I'd really emphasize that, like, treat an obstacle as an opportunity and be flexible around it rather than backing away from it. That was the second one. And then third one is well, that's hard to do, but super important, is just like keeping the problem you're solving central. It can get very easy to get caught up in the features and the design and how it looks and feels and what you're building. But at the end of the day, the only reason for your startup to exist is to solve somebody's problem. And so that should be at the center of all your decisions, your product decisions, your team decisions, your marketing decisions. Like, are you still solving the problem you're trying to solve? If not, then how can we reorientate ourselves around that problem? It's just a really good practice to continue to check in with this question on the daily, on the weekly. Like, at the start your week on a Monday at stand up, like, are we solving the problem? In which ways are we addressing it directly? In which ways are we completely missing the point? Can we cut things out of our process that aren't actually serving the people we're trying to solve the problem for? I think this is a great question to remind yourselves of. Yeah, so those would be the three big learnings from my experience here.
So like three things are like build fast as soon as possible and be flexible. And last one is just solve somebody's problem. In your case is actually you try to solve your own problem. That's you face it when you work for like a design project.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. And actually, like, I remember that's kind of like, another question that's I didn't think about asking. But thing is, I remember because I started to kind of like give a mentorship like probably week 2 or week 3, right? And then
yeah,
I was at the Cornell, and I remember all of you guys, you're like a brainstorming so many different ideas, right?
Yeah.
And then how in the end you can decide, all right, Gather is the right one. It's kind of like a redundant on the question, but thing is, what was the process of like a brainstorming with the like other team members, and then what was kind of like a transition look like? Right?
Yeah. Honestly, the process was super frustrating. I don't know if you guys in your teams have felt that in the last few weeks, but like we would just go round and round in circles and just offshoot in all these directions. We're trying to solve like 12 different problems at the same time. And we just got frustrated. And I think maybe 2.5 weeks in, we were like, if we don't change our process, we will do this for 10 weeks. And by the end, we'll have like the longest brainstorm of all time, but we'll have no product. And so I think it wasn't that we landed on the perfect idea. It's just we decided that the process wasn't working because you won't land on a perfect idea because there is no perfect idea. Like, get that like perfectionist idea mentality out of your head and realize what you have the opportunity to do is solve a problem or like solve a part of a problem. And like reframing it like that means you will make a decision because you're not looking for the perfect idea anymore. You're just looking for a problem that could be solved in some interesting way. And I think when we shifted, then we were like, okay, like this is a problem, we will resonate with it, we can do something about it, perfect, it fits the criteria and we can build it. And I think like personally, like reflecting back on it, I'm a lot more satisfied having picked one idea and gone through the iteration, the building, the marketing, the research stages of one idea than going off in the research stages of 5, 6, 7 ideas for 10 weeks. Like, I think in terms of depth of experience and depth of learning, the former is a better option in terms of understanding how startups work and understanding how building products works.
Do you still remember some of the ideas that you guys discussed? Because I remember you guys discussing like so much, and then some point I can even like feel it, like there is the like everybody kind of like started to like stress out, right? That's kind of like I remember like seeing you guys like brainstorming back then. Do you remember any of like 2 to 3 ideas that you guys brainstorm and then you guys decided not to do it?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was. I just remember some nights we were like at Kernel at like the co-working space at like midnight, and we just had like 3 whiteboards in front of us with all of these ideas and everything crossed out, and we were just exhausted. And we were like, like this process is flawed. But something I remember, like one early on we got excited about was this like AI fashion idea of like having people like try on different garments, like using AI. And we had a few meetings with fashion companies in Tokyo, and we get so excited about it. And then we squashed that week too. And I mean, we crossed a lot of industries. We were doing something with recycling in Tokyo and like AI identification of different types of rubbish. I know this is a very popular application. We had one that was an AI tool for like lifeguards to identify swimmers in pools who have gone underwater, have been under for a certain amount of time. Like we crossed, basically name any industry, we dabbled in it for at least 5 minutes during the first 3 weeks.
I see. That's interesting. And then even like I didn't know that. I just remember you guys are discussing so much. Cool. And then all right. So what if you could attend this program again as a student, right? And then how would you spend time differently and efficiently as having an experience already?
Mm-hmm. I think I covered that a little bit in my previous answer, but I would just say like, as an individual, I think there's like 2 levels to it. As an individual, as a team. As an individual, it's like you have a super unique opportunity to be like free reign to build and a lot of resources to build a startup in a really structured 10-week environment. You don't get that very often. Like as soon as you graduate, these opportunities aren't like really present to you. So like as an individual, what is it you want to get out of it? Do you want to like build a certain skill? Do you want to understand a part of the startup process better? Like I would set some individual goals. Like what do you want to get out of it after 10 weeks? What will you look back on and be like, you know what, this was a really worthwhile experience for me? That's the first level. And then the second level as a team, like, do we want to get really do we want to have a product and be able to like have a user by the end of it? Or do we want to have a really well-established business plan? Do we want to have something that will like look good in our portfolios? Do we want to have a company that we can run beyond the program? There are a lot of different goals, right? It's like a very short time frame, but there's a lot of ways you can take it. So I would sit down as an individual and reflect on what I want to get out of the program, what skills I want to develop. And then I would also sit down as a team, which maybe you've done already, and figure out like, what's your like end goal? After 10 weeks, what do you want to have in your hands? Is it a product? Is it users? Is it a plan to continue together as a team for the next year or 2 years? Whatever it is, I would sit down and get that on paper. So it's like very clear in your mind and it guides the way you structure decision making.
Actually, your answer is like a perfect segue for the next question. So after you graduate from the university, you started to work on the early stage fintech companies called Jefa, right?
Yeah.
And then
Jefa.
Jefa. Yeah. So that's Spanish. Yeah. How's the difference between working on your own idea under like this program like 2 years ago, and then working on the real startup right now?
Yeah. Good question. Well, I think like your mentality changes in like a short time frame versus like an potentially infinite timeline of a startup that exists and is funded. I think maybe an analogy is like the difference between being married and like being in a casual relationship. I don't know if this analogy will work, but maybe it makes some sense. Is like in a casual relationship or in like a short-term program, you face a challenge and it's like very easy to like step out or be like, oh, it's almost at the end, so it doesn't really matter. I don't need to solve it. I can kind of just like step around it. But in a marriage or in a startup that is funded and has like a long timeline, you can't really use that same mentality because you're committed, you're in it. If there's a problem and you don't fix it, like you're still in it and you have to deal with the problem at a later date. So you orientate yourself around the problem differently and solve it and work around obstacles and challenges. And I think that's been the biggest thing for me at Jefa for a year now, is like we face a challenge with fintech. It's often like a legal regulatory challenge, which can be messy and confusing and frustrating. And I think in this kind of setting, it'd be easy to be like, that's too complicated. Let's push it aside and just focus on something else. But in the situation of actually running a startup and having investors' money involved and expectations and no clear end date, you have to solve the problems. And so you learn to be a lot more patient and a lot more willing to encounter problems and not freak out, but like really orientate yourself and turn them into opportunities and reframe challenges. And I think like looking at this program, it's like a good thing to keep in mind is like your inclination will be to, when you see a challenge, run from it or like move it aside because you have a short timeline. And sometimes that makes sense. Sometimes it's just too complicated for 10 weeks and you can push it to the side. But I think like using some of this like true startup mentality of like, if we're doing this seriously and if we're doing this for the long term, we need to address these problems and we need to figure out how to problem solve. This is a nice thing to keep in mind to make sure you don't take too many shortcuts during this process. And that's probably been the biggest thing I've learned in this year of like more true startup life is like, you have to be patient and you have to be willing to like sit with like 10 problems at once and not despair about it, because you'll always have 10 problems or 20 or 30 at any one time. And that's just like part of being in a startup, because a startup is like a complex, dynamic organization.
How big is the team right now for your company?
We now have 16. So I was the second hire. So I was there when it was just 3 of us, and now we're up to 16, which is great. The company's growing really fast over the last year, and we've just closed another round of funding, which is awesome. Yeah, it's been great. It's been like 0 to 100, like in a way that I wasn't really prepared for.
Oh wow, that's it sounds like a hyper growth startup right now.
Yeah,
from like a 3 to like a 16, and it's probably just gonna move to like probably double or triple the number of the hires again.
Yeah,
like
it's great. It's been really good actually, and I've now had the opportunities to like hire from my team and things like that. All these things that I obviously have never had the chance to do before, which has been really exciting.
Awesome. And then what's your career plan look like? Anything that you want to share with attendees, or have you ever thought about starting your own startup, for example?
Yes, well, I have for sure. I think I'm in, I don't know, I like to think of like, I'm in like more like consumption mode at the moment, where I want to just like absorb as much as possible. And that's in my startup, and I'm starting a master's program in industrial design in September. So it's for at least my first few years out of Minerva, I want to just like absorb as much as possible. And then I think like more production oriented years will follow that. And maybe that's my own startup or something else. But at least for now, I'm really learning a lot in my role at Jefa, and I'm excited about my master's program coming up. So yeah, I'm just trying to like soak up as much as possible, especially because design for me is like a fairly new field and something I didn't get to study formally. So I'm just soaking it up.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your thought. And then let's move to the question to the audience. Anyone can ask any question to Chris. All right, go ahead.
Sure. So I wanted to ask you regarding your summer program experience. Basically, what stage did you reach in terms of growth or ambition for your summer program startup, which is Gather, as I recall? And how did you continue it after the summer?
Yeah, good question. So by the end of it, we basically had, I would say, a light prototype. So we had a functional product that worked, that realistically, like before we would have like put it out to a wider market, needed like a few more months of development, but we had a working product, and we're just sort of starting to get people using it by the time it ended. I think afterwards, 2 of our team members worked on it for a little bit longer and then decided to let it go. I don't think at the start we set the intention to continue much beyond the program. It kind of really depended on what happened, but we were all sort of going into our last year of university, our last year of Minerva, and so we're kind of focused on that. But like we still have the IP around it. We still have everything. If one person on our team wanted to pick it up, and one of the teams last year, I think, like Jin mentioned, Frank, he like consulted with us before he started his program to sort of download some knowledge because they were interested in taking the idea further. So it kind of got recombined into something they did last year. But we were kind of okay with leaving it where it was, and felt like we got out what we wanted to get out of it. One interesting thing I'll add on to that is like, Jen, is it the same structure of like having a final pitch at the end?
It's yeah, the difference is I'm not sure you guys had like a midterm presentation.
Yeah,
Did you have it? Oh yeah. So it's like, say basically like, in 2 weeks we have July 18th, in like 2 weeks we have a midterm presentation. That's we also invite the VCs from like a deep core, and then beginning the end of the August we do have a final basically, not the presentation. It should be like a pitch, like a 5 minute pitch and a 5 minutes like a Q&A.
Got it. Yeah. So just on that, like, it's very easy to focus like exclusively on the pitch and just on, especially in the last stages, like the last few weeks, like how can we like put together the strongest pitch possible? And you should focus on the pitch. You should, like, that's an important part of building a startup, is like learning how to present and talk about your ideas and be a storyteller, and raising money is a huge part of building a startup. But you also need to build the product. And I think our team, we like, in the last few weeks, we prioritize the pitch over building. And so by the end, we had a great pitch, or like a strong pitch that looked good and we were well rehearsed, but our product wasn't like as developed as maybe we want it to be. So there's not necessarily one right or wrong way, but it's something for you guys to keep in mind, is like, those are two different things. Just because you have a really strong presentation doesn't mean you have a really strong product. Like, they have to be built in tangent, and making sure you're not neglecting one or the other is like, it's a challenge, but it's an important thing in this kind of program.
Yeah. One thing I could add is it's kind of like a cooking too, right? So you wanted to cook, you need to have ingredients, but actually without any ingredients, you cannot cook, right? And then you can make it probably looks nicer, but thing is, in the end, without having like any like ingredients, I mean, you cannot basically like, cook the food, right? So you probably need to have as many as like, the execution possible. And these like product numbers, no matter what you guys have done before, that's going to be like part of your pitch too, right? And then in the end, you just need to sounds like a look, or like looks nicer too, right? That's kind of like the pitch part. Yeah,
that's great advice. And so it's the substance, like a pitch is nothing without the substance. Like, it's much more interesting for an investor to find out that you have 50 users or 50 people who are willing to pay for your product than a beautiful pitch that no one's ever seen your product before. Like, no one's going to invest in a company where no one's seen what you're doing, no one understands what you're doing, no one necessarily wants what you're doing. It's much better if you have a terrible presentation, but 50 people are using your product, than if you have a beautiful 6 weeks rehearsed presentation, but no one's ever seen your product.
Yeah, as long as if you're working on like NFT, that's like a hot topic and people want to like invest, right? It's kind of like a same way, like before, like in .com bubble, like even like a 20, like a 13 and 14, like a bunch of like my friends, founders friends in San Francisco, even they just pitch idea, they just raise like a seed money. But thing is, right now, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. All right, let's move to like another question. Anyone wanted to ask? No questions? Oh yeah. Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I can go again if there aren't any questions right now. I wanted to ask what the expectation was, because it makes sense that it's much more valuable to have users. I just wanted to make sure what the expectations were so that I can set my own incentive levels to work hard on this, really, really hard on this to, maybe for the midterm presentation or the finals. I was wondering what level of product is nice to see at the midterm level, and how those expectations would follow towards the finals. So in short, how best to secure the investment.
Jin, that's probably more up your alley.
Sorry, can you say that again, please? I was just like typing to like Nemo-san. If you can ask again. Sorry, can you say that again, please?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure, no worries. I wanted to ask how best to set the expectation for our product in terms of users, in terms of how well it works by the midterm, and then how that's going to follow towards the final presentation along the lines of securing that investment.
Right. That's like a great question. Also, like probably like after me, probably Nemo-san also give a comment too. So my expectation too, right? So by midterm presentation, as long as you talk to like a potential user and customers, you know what you are going to build it, and you have like a design, like a probably the clear definition of like MVP. That's great, right? And then same time, you already got validated idea. You start to engage potential users and customers, and then it's kind of like heads down mode, just gonna build, right? And then by the end of the program, as long as if you launch the product, get the feedback from the users for your product, right? Like a functional product. And then seriously, like Deepco and me, like, we're gonna consider if you guys really wanted to start your startup, like after this program, you're gonna like think about if it's gonna be like investable or not, right? So you need to think about, it's kind of like an incubation programs, like a setup like a program, just gonna try to like a pitch and then trying to get investment. That's the kind of expectation we're gonna see. We expect on the end of the program. Nemo-san, if you have any like a different thought or like, other things that you could add to the comment too.
Yeah, thank you. Basically, I'm aligned with your comment. So it's kind of the before the meta presentation, it's that the mission for you is to sharpen your hypothesis with a good get some good feedback from the first initial users, and the second half is the purpose for you is to build a good product based on your good hypothesis.
And then someone like, the another thought, actually, Nemo-san and I, we discussed last night. Honestly speaking, like, I talked to like a bunch of like, the startup founders too, right? Early stage founders, even like aspiring like, the idea stage of like founders, like early stage like startups too, right? And then I usually think the smartest like a founder is even like without launching product, they already have the customers. That's like a smartest like way that they can get the desire from the market too, right? So means basically you can make like a fake landing page, just like add it to like a waiting list. This is a product concept. It's gonna look like, we're just gonna launch it. You can just put it to your credit card. Ideally, we're gonna charge, but thing is we're gonna give you like a 50% discount next like 6 months. And then we're gonna get back to you in like a month too, right? Within a month. And then basically you already can reach out to potential user and customer because you already validate there is a needs from the potential customers too, right? And actually that's even like a, for example, like a Tesla is a similar way he did it too, right? Even like he started to pitch the idea for the EV, and then everybody thought this is going to be fail, but this is going to be different. This is going to be prototype. And then his case is that he put it on money, but thing is the kind of, even like, the, what's the Roadster, after the Roadster, right? He started to just like publish, hey, this is a waiting list. You just can like, sign up and we are working on this, right? So he basically implementing like a lean startup product building mode to the car industry, right? That's very like disruptive, but thing is that's basically reducing like so much like a manufacturing time too, right? And for you guys, as you're building like a software, it's gonna be like much faster than like hardware business too, right? I always like think like these like founders are very like smart, and it's not that difficult to do it too, right? It's just more trying to catch the desire from the market. Cool. Yeah, we can take 1 or 2 more questions and we can wrap up this fireside chat event. Let's take a question from Nemo-san actually.
Yes, long time no see, Chris. I'm very glad that you are still actively engaging the early stage startups, and I'm very glad you are joining the early stage startups. Since I think that you want to join a startup when you joined the Minerva Research Lab. So I'm very curious about your not the strategy, but how do you think to build your careers? I mean, I think it is a very nice choice for you to join the very early stage startups right now. I mean, for the preparation for you will build your own company or startup company. And considering your history of the internship or some other activity during the student ages, I think that it is also connected to your now career. So I would like to ask you what kind of experience do you think needed to become a founder, and what kind of choices did you select from your student ages and now? So I would like to know about your thought to your choice about the careers.
Yeah, awesome question, and nice to see you again too. Yeah. So that's a good question. I think for me, when it came to graduating, a simplified version of the decision I had to make was join a startup and have a lot of responsibility and a lot of ownership, or join a bigger company, more established company, and have a lot more mentorship and structured learning. and both make sense depending on what you're trying to do. For me, startup made more sense because one of the beauties and what I think is a lot of people find interesting in working in startups is you have to wear many hats. Even if you're the head of design or the finance person or the marketing person, you'll be doing finance, marketing, design, a bit of everything almost all of the time, especially when your team is small. And like as your guys' teams will be small the entire summer, right? So you'll have to work in a bunch of different functions. And I think this is the best preparation for starting your own startup you can get, because you'll be experienced in multiple facets of running a business and building a business. For me, that's been like fintech is something I haven't been exposed to before, but now I understand it like quite deeply by building and growing a company within fintech. I've just like upskilled in a bunch of different areas. And I think if I'd worked, say if I'd gone to work as a junior designer at Google, I think my design skills like would have increased along specific tracks. I would have gone deeper. And so I would have been like more skilled in one area. But by choosing a startup, I think I've like the depth of skill in a bunch of different areas is much stronger than if I'd taken a big company role. Like I think I'm much stronger as a designer, as a communicator, as someone who understands how to raise money, as someone who understands how to think about strategy and build teams and morale and all of these things that come with running or like being part of a startup. So I think it's like, that's a simplified version of the decision maybe you'll have to make, or maybe you're thinking about now. And it's just, it depends on what you're trying to prioritize and what you're trying to optimize for. For me, it was learning in a really diverse environment and getting to wear many hats. Maybe for you, that's why you're part of this program this summer, and that's great. And you should embrace that and not shy away from doing things you're not comfortable with. But maybe it's something else. Maybe you really want to go deeper in one skill, and it makes more sense to get a technical role at a bigger company where you'll have more mentorship. At least at the moment for me, the startup world is where I want to be. It's where I think I'm learning the most. And so I'm going to stay in this lane for a while.
Yeah, sounds very interesting. Thank you. And also, I was very interested in that you are going to go to graduate school, right? So,
yes.
Is it? Have you planned already when you graduate? It means that did you decide to take a career for the RSA startup and then we go to graduate school to gain your professional skills or knowledge? So, is it that decision you made at the same time, or do you think so you come up with ideas, oh, it is nice for me to go to graduate school now after you started to work for your company, the company?
Yeah, good question. Afterwards, honestly, I think for most people, graduate school doesn't make sense and isn't like necessarily good value. And I wasn't planning to go to graduate school. There's just a specific set of skills, which is like industrial design and like building physical products, which I think the most efficient way to learn them is to do a master's program, rather than, it's kind of difficult to learn industrial design on Coursera or in other ways, because you need like lab space, like workshop space and things like that. So for me, for the like specific need I was trying to solve, which is like, I want to learn industrial design and I haven't found an opportunity to do that, it fits that need perfectly. But honestly, I think for most people, defaulting into graduate school is not a great economic proposition, and you'd probably be better off just like working for a startup that does the thing you're trying to learn.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that it's kind of the pioneer, or I'm not sure is the word is correct or not, but I think it is very interesting that you go to graduate school at the same time you work for startup company. So basically, we think it is difficult because working at a startup company is very hard, and it takes a few years before you get the good rewards or skilled when you work at a startup company. But do you think so? Do you have any arrangement for your entrance to the graduate school?
Yeah. So
with your work, typically,
so I've just hired a few people to join my like design team at the startup.
I see.
So my responsibilities will be like diluted quite a lot, which is lucky because I wouldn't have been able to manage both at the same time with the current setup. But now it should be a lot more balanced, I hope. But I'm sure it'll probably be too much.
But I think that such kind of challenge must be very valuable. So that since what is happening for the RSC startup is it is difficult for the people who is working at the RSC startup. They it is difficult for them to develop their professional skill, right? So as you mentioned, it is, of course, when you work at a startup company, it is very good environment to get the various, it's kind of the, it's kind of human skill, right? So you need to tackle with every bunch of the amount and a bunch of kinds of a program. So of course, it is valuable for the experience for the young people, but at the same time, as what Chris thinks is, it is sometimes it is needed for the young people to develop their professional skills. So yeah, I was very I'm very looking forward to your journey in next few years. It must be the very, of course, it might be hard, but I think that when you've accomplished the graduate school program and your work, you must become the kind of the powerful, skilled.
Well, we'll see.
entrepreneurs.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I hope so. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very kind.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay,
Anyone?
yeah.
Yeah. Anyone has any questions? It's a great chance to ask Chris. Don't be shy. All right. Let's take Arnam's question and we can wrap up. All right.
All right. I just like you to maybe summarize how it felt to grow from 3 to 16 employees, and you know, your work schedule, just to sort of give a hint of the startup life that you lived through.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it would be nice to journey back through memory lane for me. Yeah, so I mean, honestly, you guys are lucky to be in such small teams. I think that's part of the magic of the early days of a startup. Like, it's so fun. Like, a lot of it is frustrating, but a lot of it's so fun. Like, with people, hopefully you get along with, and you're just like turning you're turning blank pages into something, into a product, into users, into this, into that. Like, I loved the start. We were 3 for a while, and then we were 4, and for 6 months we were just 5 of us. And it was my favorite part of the process by far. I think, yeah, you have the opportunity in a small team to just, if there's any part of the business, any part of what you're building that's interesting, take ownership of it and do it. No one else is going to do it for you. You don't have superiors to tell you what to do. If it's interesting to you, you can do it. And I loved doing that for the first 6 months. As we grew and we grew structures, that ability to do that in a small way was diluted. And so we're a more structured company now. And there are good things and bad things about that. Now I think it's nice. I think we've managed to maintain the culture that we built at the start. It's been interesting as well because this was a startup born in COVID time, so it's been remote the entire time. I've been in New Zealand and in Asia, and the rest of the team is in Latin America and Europe and the US. It's very spread out, and so we had to try and understand how do you build culture and a team and connections between people when everyone's spread out across the world and no one's actually although some of us knew each other beforehand, no one's seen each other since we've been working on this. It's a very strange thing to conceptualize, but probably a reality that you'll get more and more used to. I mean, you guys are doing it now. And I think it's a cool challenge is without the conversations in the hallway or over lunch or this or that, without the informal social interactions, how do you remain connected to these people, not just as your colleagues, but as your friends, you're human beings who also have their own lives and their own complicated things going on. Probably a cool thing for you guys to think about. I was lucky enough when I did this program to be in Tokyo, living with everyone. I probably saw a little bit too much of everyone. You guys don't have that. You guys will probably have a very small amount of each other, but how can you enjoy it as well? How can you enjoy building something with your friends? I think as serious and high stakes as startup life sometimes feels, it's also just a lot of fun. If you're working on something you care about, you get to do something you care about. You have a lot of flexibility, a lot of ability to learn in areas that are interesting, and you're building with your friends. That's a pretty great setup in a lot of ways. And you have every reason to enjoy the process and not freak out and rush through it. 10 weeks is a short time, but if you just slow down a little bit and actually just pay attention and enjoy the process, you'll get a ton out of it. I think I've mainly done that in my first year of startup life. But always learning, for sure.
Awesome. And then actually, like, I do have like one last question. I remember when I had you're gonna join this like a fintech company. It's like in Latin America, focusing on new the fintech service, right? And then I remember you guys attended like a TechCrunch Disrupt in San Francisco and New York, and then you become like a winner, right, of the pitch event.
We came. We didn't win. We came third in TechCrunch Disrupt, which was cool because we didn't have a product at that point. We were like 3 months in. There were 4 of us working at the company, and we were like one of the top 5 companies at TechCrunch for last year, which was amazing. And I'd probably like a testament. Like that's the same kind of period of time of you guys have, right? It's like if the idea is strong and you believe in it, and you can tell a story, like people will listen to you. Like YC will listen to you, TechCrunch will listen to you, SoftBank will listen to you if you have something compelling and something that has like guts behind it. So yeah, we had that opportunity early on. I think Jin raised the point of a waitlist earlier. Waitlist is a great idea, especially in a condensed time frame. We did that at Jefa before we had any users, before we had any products. We had 150,000 people on our waitlist. Investors listen to that and they pay attention and they give you money because of that, because they trust the power of people like signing up with their word. And 150,000 is a lot of people, but also 5,000 is a lot of people, 1,100 is a lot of people, to show that people actually are like interested in what you're building, to the extent that they will like leave their email. Like it doesn't seem like a lot, but no one likes to give out their email. If they do that, it's because they like care at least in some way about what you're trying to do. So you listen to Jin, because this is good advice. But yeah, that was a cool experience we had in our first year.
Cool. Awesome. What was that? Sorry, I tried to ask like one more question. Oh yeah, how did you know this company, by the way? Because you are the number 3, right? In that case, like, one co-founder, actually, you say like, I am the second hire, means like an original CEO and the founder, and then another like an employee, and then just you, right?
It was just
when you join.
We have a single founder, so a single founder, and then it was like a communications person, and then it was me. It was actually through Minerva. I don't know if you guys still do this in Minerva, but there was a Future Talks conference where we all went to the Arctic, like 15 Minerva students with a bunch of world leaders, and they put us on a ship in the Arctic for 10 days. And I met the founder on the ship, and we got along really well. And then we met up later in Berlin, and she was, the ship. And she was, she was basically, she left her previous startup to found this one, and we'd stayed in good touch. And she's like, you're the person I want to like build the product. And within a week of her deciding that, I had like signed the contract and begun. Another testament to like use your network you get through this opportunity. Like there's a lot of smart people. Say hi, like have conversations, get their help, stay connected to them. They're here to help you, and like that is probably how you will end up with your first job out of school, your next internship, you're this, you're that, by like making strong connections with the people who are around you at the moment. So yeah, don't be a stranger with like this group of people, because there's a lot of people around you at the moment this summer.
Yeah, but the thing is like, just, I didn't know the original story, but thing is that if I think about now, she just had because I remember the founder is like the female founders, right? She's like a female founder, right? And then it sounds like she had an idea, she doesn't have money, she just have another employee, and you decided to join that company. How did you make a decision? Like what like how did you emphasize like her vision and mission? Because there's not any even like a product, right? And there's not any money or anything, right? It actually sounds very like a risky decision if somebody's just gonna think about your situation, right?
Yeah.
I'm just curious
I didn't think it was risky at all. That was like one reason, which is that I trust her. Like I think she's very smart, and she's built great things in the past. And I have zero doubt that whatever she's working on, I just know that she will succeed in whatever she's working on. And I think sometimes you meet people like this who you just like really trust that what they're doing will succeed in one way or the other. And when you find someone like that and they're interested in working with you, I think it's just like kind of a no-brainer. So I didn't see it as a risk at all. I was like, if she believes in this, and like based on her background, I believe she does believe in this, then I'm happy to be on board, because I trust her vision. I trust her depth of knowledge, and like I trust that she can build something great. And so yeah, I think like people is like the core of any startup, and sometimes you find people who you just like know will succeed at something, and make sense to link up.
That's actually like a perfect answer from the early employee of like a startup. I just like, align your mission and vision. I really like founders, because someone like, even like, I remember we hire like a few software engineers. It was very difficult for us to like, align the mission together, right? Because our case was also like a hyper growth startup, and they say we wanted to be part of this because we just wanted to get experience of startups too, right? The thing is they didn't care about that much about the mission and vision. Also like a co-founding team. So like after like 3 or 4 months, even like our case like 2016, so it's still kind of like early remote environment. So people haven't gotten used to like working in remote. So kind of like, it got like so easy to be apart from like, kind of like, the things we worked on. So it's like a perfect answer to hear from you on that.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, I think everyone in my team would say a similar thing. Like, I don't know. I think we have a super strong culture and like a team that like actually really believes in what we're doing, which is kind of rare. Like, I don't know if that many startups like organically have that kind of like mission oriented team. And like, I feel super lucky to have stumbled into it like straight out of Minerva.
Awesome, cool. So you guys should also like join the what's the name of the conference again?
Like TechCrunch.
TechCrunch?
No. The you attended in the when you met her, the Future Talk.
Oh, Future Talks. Yeah, I don't know if Minerva's still doing that. If they are, make sure you get involved. Oh, they're not.
Check out Future Talk and ask like Dan if you want to join the hypergrowth startup. Probably. Awesome. Cool. Cool. And like that could be like a last question. If you really want to ask a question, we can take like one more question. The thing is it's probably like a good time to wrap up. And then Chris, if you don't mind, we do have like a midterm presentation, right? In 2 weeks. If you have a time, actually we wanted to invite you as a judge.
Oh wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, actually like Frank, he's gonna join, and if you could join, that could be like a great, and then like attendees can basically the team can present, and then you could give a feedback to them too, right?
Yeah,
we're gonna send you like a detail to you next week, right? And then let's take group pictures. If you wanted to turn off the camera, that's fine too. Thing is, if you can, that could be like a nice too. All right. 3, 2, 1, cheese. All right, make it like a funny one. All right. 3, 2, 1, cheese. Oh, that's good. I like it, that one, Jack. All right, thank you so much, Chris, for your time today. That was very insightful, and we are very glad to hear that we had a chance to hear also like get share like so many experiences that you're working on right now. And thank you so much again for your time today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, you guys. Nice to see you. Well, good luck this summer. I hope you go well and enjoy yourselves.
What's the best way that they can reach out to you? You're on Slack.
Yeah, Jen, I'll send you some contact information afterwards, and you maybe can pass it on.
Okay, sounds good. Awesome. Cool. In that case, see you guys on Slack. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.